and I'm planning a 5 things that shouldn't, or 5 things that weren't in the Fighting with My Family film that, if they were in that film, would have broken the film.
Oh, okay then. Good luck
But
trying to
with a
think of the
catchier
title.
title.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a catchier title.
Plan number 1, think of title.
Show your support. Follow me on Twitter.
Hello, I am That British Guy. Yes, 5 things that weren't in the Fighting with My Family film that, if they had have been in, would have broken the film. Now, this isn't to say that I will be basically knocking the film in any way. As I said in my review, I enjoyed the film for what it was, a film. But there were 5 fairly obvious standout things that were historically very inaccurate. But I do appreciate, if they had been done accurately, would have ruined certain elements of the film. So without further ado, here they are.
Wrong belt. Now, Paige was born in 1992, and between the years of 95 to 98, there wasn't officially a women's title in the then World Wrestling Federation. And in 1998, they introduced the women's title back to the Federation. However, the belt did not look like the belt that a child Paige had made a cutout version of in the film. That was clearly depicting the Divas title. Now, this title didn't actually come into play until the year 2008, 3 years after Paige's in-ring debut, and only 3 years before she was actually signed by the then WWE. And the women's title that actually arrived in 1998 ran until 2010, when it was combined with the Divas title, and the WWE then only had officially one women's title, which itself was then retired in 2016 and replaced by the now Raw women's title. So obviously, based on those numbers, a, shall we say, 10, 11-year-old Paige around the year 2002-2003 wouldn't even know what the Divas title was for another 6 or so years. Now, obviously, non-wrestling fans would not be aware of these anomalies and would be wondering why she is made a cutout version of a belt she then doesn't hold when she finally wins it at the end. But it is an interesting point nonetheless. Her entire NXT run. Paige was signed in 2011, and NXT didn't actually come around until 2012, so she actually signed and performed for Florida Championship Wrestling, or FCW, which was WWE's developmental brand at the time. Now, obviously, less than a year later, when FCW became NXT, she migrated over to this new brand, and was actually the brand's first ever women's champion, winning a tournament where she beat Tamina Snuka in the quarter-final, Alicia Fox in the semi-final, and Emma in the final. Now, at the time, her and Emma were kind of pushed as the two figureheads of the women's division in NXT, and Tamina and Alicia Fox were kind of on the fringes on the main roster, and at the time were kind of being used to help boost the women's division on the developmental brand. So these 3 victories, especially at the time, were a very, very big deal, and for her to be the brand's first ever women's champion, again, a very, very big deal. Needless to say, she won this new belt in 2013 when she was only 21 years of age. She also defended this belt at NXT Arrival, a special show for the WWE Network, the first of its kind, and these have now morphed into the NXT TakeOver shows, which are effectively their pay-per-views. She ended up holding the title for 274 days and vacated it in April 2014 when she finally won the Divas title. Failed tryout. The tryout we see in the film, where she is successful, was actually her second tryout for the company and happened in early 2011. However, in November 2010, her and her brother were unsuccessful in their first tryout. Obviously, the way this is depicted in the film, with them actually being very excited to get this tryout and her to actually give it her all and be successful, is very different to how things happened in real life. There are obviously time constraints within the film, and it doesn't really lead to too much in the overall narrative of the story to say that she actually failed on her first attempt. If anything, it kind of dampens her story altogether. But again, an interesting piece of trivia nonetheless. Performing around Europe and the world. When she first arrives in the film in Florida, they make a very big deal of the fact that she is away from home on her own in a completely different place. Obviously, this is to make her feel like the new girl, to make her feel isolated, and to tell the story that the family as a unit is much stronger together, and if you take one of those elements away from the rest of the family, then they are weaker for it and the remaining family members are also weaker for it. However, only a year after her in-ring debut, at the age of only 14 in 2006, she was travelling around Europe and to the US on her own, performing in various countries such as Belgium, France, Turkey, Denmark, Norway and Germany. And just before she was actually signed with WWE, she was doing a lot of work for Pro Wrestling Eve and Shimmer in 2011. Now this obviously requires her to have been travelling a lot, and because these were commitments solely for her, then there was no need to take the rest of the family with her. So she would have been visiting all of these places on her own, just like she did when she first arrived in Florida. Still the youngest Divas champion. At the very end of the film, when she does win the Divas Championship on the Raw after WrestleMania 30, there is a little caption at the end of the film that instructs us that Paige is still to this day the youngest ever person to win the Divas title. Now this in itself seems like a very big deal. However, she won the belt in April 2014 and the belt was retired less than 2 years later at WrestleMania 32. Still, 2 years, somebody could easily have won it younger than her within that 2-year bracket. However, after she held the belt in April 2014, there were only 4 other champions after that. She dropped the belt back to AJ Lee, the woman that she actually won the belt from. Now, she had already held the belt twice, and if Paige had already out-youthed her when she won the belt, then there was no way AJ was going to get younger when she won the belt again. Paige herself then won the belt back from AJ Lee again. Obviously, time making her older, she wasn't going to be younger than herself. The final 2 champions, firstly Nikki Bella, who went on to have the longest ever single reign with the belt, had already won it before in 2012, and in 2012 was older than Paige was when she won it in 2014. And the final champion, Charlotte, coincidentally the woman who would be the second ever NXT Women's Champion, was 29 when she won the Divas Championship, and it retired when she defended it at WrestleMania 32, winning the new Women's Championship as it was then, which has become the Raw Women's Championship since. So as you can see, they put it over as a very big deal, and I'm sure at the time, 21-year-old winning was a very big deal. But to call her still the youngest champion doesn't have the same effect when there were 4 champions after her, 2 of which had already held the belt, 1 of which was herself, and the final champion being significantly older than her.
So there we go, there were 5 things that were not in the Fighting With My Family film, and had they been in the film they would have completely broken it. Were there any other bits and pieces that I may have missed out? Please let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you like the videos on my channel, please also give it a subscribe. That would be very much appreciated. Till next time, I have been That British Guy, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye.